All right, Jordan Palmer is on with us. Hey, Jordan, before I get to anything else, because I was just watching Josh Allen. I know Josh Allen, like that's one of the guys, right? Like watching his
the DN Josh Allen for the Jaguars or the quarterback for the Bills?
I'm assuming the quarterback, since you're the quarterback guy,
okay.
right? Okay,
I
making
sure. Be on the same page.
And Josh Allen for the Jags now has a new name. It's like he had to add like a middle name so you didn't get him confused.
I would too. Yeah.
Talk about Josh Allen, like your guy, because it has been the maturation of him going the guy that just throws hard to the guy now that's running three and throwing three in the same game and is making equally as good of decisions. Like, what has it been like, and why has he been able to mature so quickly?
Well, I think he was kind of born to do this, and the way that God designed him. It was funny. It was during the draft process when he was out here and I was doing interviews. And at this point, it sounds funny now, but at this point in his career, I was trying to like lobby for him. Like I'd go in the media, I'd go on the Herd, and I'd be like, in fact, I went on the Herd and Colin wanted to talk about Sam Darnold and he didn't know I was training Josh. And he goes, well, obviously Josh Allen the Wyoming kid's going to be a bust, but let's talk about Sam Darnold. And I go, hold on. I work with him too. Let me just try and sell you on him real quick. Right. And so that was kind of like that phase when all the conversations with Josh during the draft process were trying to not convince people, but just representing his behalf in the media, my own words, not his, but how good he is going to be and all this. And I did a Sports Illustrated interview and I said, Josh is the best athlete pound for pound to play the quarterback position. And I doubled down on it after his rookie year when he didn't have a great rookie year. And I got smoked in the comment section. They put it on Instagram, they put it on Twitter and stuff like that. And I had a blast just reading the comments and I got smoked. And my point was is like the way, I don't care about his 40 time, the way he runs, because some guys run fast 40s, but they're not great runners. And some guys don't run fast 40s, but they're great runners. Right. And that's a different skill than timing yourself to run from 0 to 40 yards very quickly. Right. And I go, he's like, at the time he was like 255. He's got maybe the best arm I've seen, which is a strong statement because I've basically seen everybody. But he's an elite dynamic runner. He's gonna be one of the best runners in the league, like ball carriers, like biggest threat when you're in the open field with them. And I made that point, and you look at the Vicks and these other guys, Lamar, and it's like, and these guys who've been great runners. And I'm not saying he's as fast as those guys, but I'm like, he's got 50 pounds on them. It's not even the same thing. And so I think that was always there. And then you go back early with Josh Allen. He grew up on a farm. He's got 3 siblings. His dad is his idol and super hardworking. So when you grow up on a farm, I used to make this comment all the time, like, and the pipe breaks, right? Your dad does not call the plumber. When my pipe broke at my house, my dad called the plumber, right? I wasn't even there for it. When you grow up on a farm and the pipe breaks, your dad wakes you up at 4 a.m. and he goes, wake up, boys. I'm going to teach you guys how to fix this pipe. And then the next time it breaks, the dad wakes you up and goes, go fix it. And so you become a problem solver and you have to carry heavy things all the time. And you get up early and you go to bed late. And so like, I think like all the things, like the physical attributes and then the toughness and the work ethic and all of that stuff. But I think the biggest thing that Buffalo fans know this now, and I think maybe the national media is starting to see this, is as unique as his physical skill set is, and I'll argue always has been, but as unique as his physical skill set is, his personality is equally as unique. And I don't mean unique like he's different. I mean like unique, like he might be the coolest guy I've met. Like the nicest friend, the kindest, the most selfless, the funniest, the sharp. So it's not just like we get so enamored by the highlights and it's easy for your eye to go there. But I think Buffalo realizes, the fan base now, the teammates from day one, like how cool he is. And that's relevant to me. It doesn't show up in the draft process, but it's relevant to me. And then the last piece is he's had multiple coordinators. And right now he's got a coordinator in Joe Brady. Joe Brady worked with Sam Darnold in Carolina, who I've worked with, and worked with Joe Burrow in college, who I work with. And it's like, and Josh is as smart as any of these guys to come in here and enter into that room. And so to have the context from these different coaches go, that dude's one of the sharpest dudes I've been around. So it's all three. It's the physical, the mental, and the emotional.
You talk about certain things like growing up and skills that like Josh had, like working at the farm. And I'm not sure if you work with Drake May at all or not, but I'm curious as to certain quarterbacks are wired certain ways where Drake May, his family, like he's got to prove himself within his family, much less, just be the guy that makes it in the NFL. But if you're like the youngest kid, are a lot of those home factors, do they end up kind of manifesting themselves on the field, and it does separate some of those guys based on what scenario they lived in growing up?
100%. So I'm a father of 4. I have 3 boys, 9, 6, and 2. And then I have a baby girl. She's 4 months old. I see it right now. This morning, my kids play with these things called blockaroos. They're little magnet things that you build and you assemble and all that stuff. And my 6-year-old was building the zip line for his action figures. And then my 2-year-old comes in and smacks it down, and he shoves him on the ground. And like, you can't push him. And then he pops back up. And my 2-year-old like gets up off the ground, like ready to square up and fight the 6-year-old. And like I'm kidding, but I'm not. Like, that's totally part of it. It's different than like my 2-year-old's going to grow up with his older brothers pushing him back and not letting him go. And if they wants to go ride scooters, he's going to have to go fast and catch up. They aren't going to wait for him. Like, I totally think that that's relevant. And think about it. That's going to be his education. Like, that's how he's like getting into this world. That's all he's going to know. And so, Drake May, I've been around him quite a bit. And, when you're playing basketball and you're against your brother, who's 1, older, and 2, like a D1 great basketball player, like that, he's not going to let you get rebounds. Like, you're going to have to box him out. And so the accumulation of those reps of fighting for yourself and standing up for yourself and getting back up and competing, and games to 11, and you lose 11-0 until you can lose 11-1 and then 11-2. And then at some point, hopefully it's 10-10, got to win by 2. And so I think like the evolution of a kid growing up with that, I'll argue that's far more valuable for their development than whatever they're going to learn at school.
When you're working with a quarterback, and let's use 2 different kinds of examples, like a Bo Nix who went through a lot at Auburn. Obviously, like his dad was like the guy at Auburn. So he goes to Auburn and they kind of ran him out. And so then he goes to Oregon and succeeds. So he went through a lot of adversity and he played a lot of quarterbacks. Same thing with like a Michael Penix Jr., right? Like got hurt, Indiana, Washington. So all this happens with those 2 kind of guys. However, and then you take a guy like an Anthony Richardson who does not play a lot of snaps at quarterback, crazy athlete, but doesn't have a lot of experience at playing games in college. Will you treat them differently while training them because of the education that they have through college and through adversity?
Well, it starts with the evaluation process for me, and not that I'm going to make somebody stand outside of my building and I'm going to evaluate them before I let them come in. But I want to be right. The guys I train, right? You start off the interview, you asked me about Josh Allen, somebody I was right on, right? So like, I want to be right. And I want what's best for these guys, and I want them to reach their potential. But there's a couple things where if a guy has anything on this list of things that I can't help you with, then I don't know how good that guy's going to be. One of the things that I look for is context for adversity. Now, not manufactured adversity, because if you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth and everything was easy, like I can't fault you for that, right? That was your parents. They did that, right? My brother and I grew up wealthy Orange County kids in Southern California. Like it's not a knock on me. That's how I grew up. But when I see an athlete who's been through adversity, and there are a lot of different levels to adversity, and I look at how they've handled it, that becomes like a process, and there's a pattern that exists there. And so let me show you this. This is my logo. Okay. QB Summit is my business. So this is a mountain range, right? This is your career. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, it's up. Like I haven't seen this career. I don't know if it's doing this right, going to the top right corner, right? It might be backwards. Okay.
There you go.
I don't know. I haven't seen that career, right? Where like they started off and then they like were the best 8th grade quarterback ever. And they went to high school and they won the championships and they got millions of dollars in NIL. And then they got the Gatorade thing. And they go to college and then they were like, even Trevor Lawrence, where you go, his Adidas campaign was #1 since day one. And I met him in 8th grade. So like he was literally #1. Dude, that guy went through a lot of stuff, a lot of pressure of being the #1 recruit in the country as a sophomore in high school. When you're 15, you don't know anything. And so I look for guys who've been through adversity to see what their context is for adversity. And so one of the things that I love about Bo Nix's story, and I would say Michael Penix as well, I've spent a lot of time with Bo, is Bo was the kid who this happened, right? He was like the best middle school kid. And then he was on Cam Newton's flag football or 7-on-7 team in high school, which basically like his receivers were like George Pickens and like, you know, a bunch of the other top recruits in the country. And he was like the #1 recruit in the country. I coached him at the Elite 11. I was the offensive coordinator on his team. And we lost in the championship, and Spencer Rattler was the MVP and Bo Nix was runner up. Like he was always number one. And he went to Auburn and he played for an offense that I don't think you can succeed in Gus Malzahn's offense. I think it was really hard to find success. I didn't like the concepts and I don't know about the talent around him because I don't know how to score it, but like he was just put in this situation where I don't know how you can be successful. And so they kind of ran him out of there, to your point, right? Like they booed him and he's a bust and he's this. And I did another interview and they said, what is Bo Nix's ceiling? And I said, I don't care what's been happening with Bo Nix. I know how he works. I know how he plays. I know how he treats his teammates. I know how he goes about his position. Like his context is like top 10 pick. And I got smoked in the comment section. At this time, this guy was transferring. My bad. I was off one pick. Went 11th or whatever. Right. Because my point is like, put him in a good situation and this guy will thrive. And I think he's going to be offensive rookie of the year. And so when I look at a player, and if I was a college coach and an NFL evaluator looking at it, one of the first things I need to figure out is what is your context for adversity? Because look at Trevor Lawrence, right? That whole crazy career of everything going awesome. Yeah. And then he had like one of the hardest rookie seasons I've ever seen a quarterback have. And he's a client of mine. Like that was a really difficult rookie year. And so you better have some context for it because I don't want to make you my starting quarterback. And then when adversity hits, it's the first time you've ever experienced it.
Sam Darnold is an example of professional adversity. Gets drafted to the Jets, plays for the Panthers. We've now seen those are two places that quarterbacks go to die for the most part. Gets to go be with the 49ers, and now he's killing it with Minnesota. Is that a guy that had been through it, or did he have to develop this callus once he got pro?
I think a lot of it is the way that Sam's raised. Very, very hardworking parents. And he grew up in Southern California. So I think people think that he's a surfer and was rich, and that's not the case. But very blue collar, very humble. And, I met him when he was 14 and so he goes to SC and they weren't really developing quarterbacks there at that point, in my opinion. He just kind of ran around and made plays and he had this crazy redshirt freshman year, where he rattled off 9 straight and was Rose Bowl MVP. We probably all remember that, that he became Sam Darnold that game. And then followed it up and had a decent year, but good enough to be the 3rd pick in the draft. And yeah, I was nervous the whole way through, knowing that was the floor in the draft for him at 3. Because for all the reasons, I'm not going to educate you on how the Jets have struggled to develop quarterbacks, but yeah, I was put in a really, I think, an impossible situation to succeed, not really given anything other than new coordinators every year. And if you look at it too, he got coaches who didn't get jobs after that. Right. Like, I don't know if Adam Gase. Right.
Yeah. Adam Gase is not, I don't think.
Matt Rule went back to college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then the part that nobody catches is probably 4 years ago, he's in Carolina, and it was the year when they traded Christian. So Christian got hurt week 4 at Houston. I was at that game. Through the first 3 games of that year, Joe Brady was his coordinator. Joe Brady's the coordinator of the Bills now. Sam was rolling, playing great football. And they built the whole offense around Christian, but I'm not saying he was playing great because he was handing the ball to Christian every play. I'm saying like he looked great. And then Christian got hurt, and they just really struggled to have an identity. Robbie Chosen was his main receiver, and you know what I mean? So it was just a tough situation, and the year unraveled on him. And then Matt Rule came in, and then Baker Mayfield came in, and then Cam Newton came in. And it was just like, well, here's how to not develop a quarterback. And then coming out of there, he goes to San Fran, and it was a smart move to go to San Fran because my point that I made to him, I help guys out in free agency all the time, just making decisions, is I said, Sam, you've never had context for being in a winning locker room. You've never been around a bunch of guys where every single person you look at is a winner. And just everyone in the NFL is not a winner. And so going to San Fran, I'll get to Kyle Shanahan in a second, but in San Fran, and I don't care what the record is right now, these guys for the last 4 years have either been to the NFC title game or the Super Bowl, right? So when the San Francisco 49ers, the best players on the team, if I said rank the best players, those are also like, I don't know where Debo's on that list, but everybody else like is also the hardest working, most bought in guy. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Juice, you know what I mean? The left tackle, like Bosa. So that's a team where the best players are also the most bought in. And that's not true. I can speak from experience. That is not true everywhere. And so to go and immerse yourself and not have to be the vocal leader, to sit back. And by the way, Brock Purdy, super hardworking, super bought in, one of the best players on the team, right? So when you look at get to go be around that for a year, and by the way, go to the Super Bowl and watch Brock Purdy play, and then get to the Kyle Shanahan, how much you learn. And they might run the exact same concept he's ran before, but Kyle explains it differently or shows this different angle. And it's like, oh man, I never even thought about it. That's easier to think about it like that. Kyle's just a fantastic teacher. And so to go and get to do that and sharpen it kind of in the quiet, like in the dark, nobody was watching Sam Darnold last year, to then put him in a position to be in a situation where now he's the guy and has a lot of those same things. Those players in Minnesota are really bought in. That coaching staff's phenomenal across the board. It's a great culture. And then to play for a coach who played the position, two coaches, because Josh McCown's his quarterback coach. I don't think it's magic. I don't think it's luck. And I don't think it's just Justin Jefferson. I think it's a combination of Sam weathering the storm of 6 years of kind of getting punched in the stomach and remaining neutral about it, not getting too high or too low. So from a sports psychology perspective, remaining very neutral. He's a very neutral thinker. It's something I teach. And I always tell guys like Sam, who are really talented, really bought in, work hard. I just say, look, in my experience, there will be a time and a place where all you have to do is play to the best of your ability, and you will be in every game with a chance to make a run at the end. That's a verbatim quote. And I've been telling him that for about 5 years. And he's now in a place where all he has to do is play to the best of his abilities, and they're going to be in every single game with a chance to make a run at the end.
What's the advice you give a guy like let's say a Cam Ward or a Shador or any of the guys going in, even last year, and they're going into a situation that Cleveland or the Raiders that don't have a history, at least in the past few years, of developing a quarterback, and it doesn't look like they'll be surrounded by the best. Like, how do you keep their heads on straight?
Well, it's a great question. The narrative can feel like a dead end, right? Like Cleveland took me. I mean, the context here, my brother was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, number 1 pick, right? So like, and this is, he talked about this. So my brother won the Heisman, and he was in New York, and he did the media tour. And so I think it was CBS was there at the time. And the people were James Brown, who's, shout out James Brown, one of the greatest guys on TV ever. And Chris Sims and whoever else, and then Boomer Esiason. And Boomer Esiason was a quarterback for the Bengals a long time ago. He was the greatest Bengals quarterback before my brother, then before Joe Burrow, right? And so he wins the Heisman. He goes there and kind of locked my brother up to be the number 1 pick at that point. And he's doing the interview, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, congratulations! So tell me about what you're going to do." Like, doing the whole deal. And Boomer Esiason hands him a Bengals helmet, and he goes, "Congratulations and welcome to the Cincinnati Bengals, where quarterbacks come to die." And that really stuck with my brother, because Boomer is like a really sharp, credible, good guy. Like he's not a lightning rod, And that comment, I think, sat with my brother for a while. And I'm not speaking for him, but like, I know that was a thing. And then what happened is the narrative kind of came out, and then you hear about it all the time and all these problems. But here's the antidote for that. Joe Burrow heard those exact same things, right? I trained Joe for the draft, and he's a client now. Like, he was the number 1 pick. The Bengals are going to take him. They weren't going to move off the pick. Anybody could have traded anything. They weren't going to do it, right? And he went to the Super Bowl his second year there off of an ACL. And so if I'm talking to Shador or Cam, I go, the narrative is the narrative. Let's say it's Cleveland or the Raiders, okay? The narrative is the narrative, but you create the narrative moving forward. So I talk a lot about neutral thinking. One of my best friends, he passed away a couple of years ago, Trevor Moad, was arguably the top performance psychologist in the world. And he had a really interesting perspective on explaining how the past doesn't have to have anything to do with the future. Like you can't prove that it does. Now we can take the momentum of something that's happened, how terrible everything's gone, how awesome everything's gone. We can take that momentum into the next thing, but it doesn't have to have anything to do with that. And so the ability to reset, whether it's Sam Darnold resetting personally each year, or Joe Burrow going to the Bengals going, look, I know how things have gone, but that's not how they're going to go. Or it's Shador or Cam or whoever going to Cleveland, going to whoever it is. And like that pass doesn't have to have anything to do with it. The last piece of advice I give guys when they come in is you're going to be celebrated so much for all that you do during the draft process. You're going to see your own highlights all the time on TV, all the time on social media. You better be damn sure that you are consciously almost like through a level of paranoia, trying to address the things that you can actually fix right now, the things that you can improve on, because it's so easy to go through the motions and then go get draft and be so set on the draft or the Shrine Bowl or the, combine or my workout. Like, you can get so set on these individual events that are ahead of you that you better be damn sure be focusing on what do I need to fix right now that worked for me in college that will not work next year. Who can I have around me who's going to point those things out? And how do I obsess over those things? Because once the draft happens and you put that hat on and now you're like a bear or a whatever, like, it doesn't matter. Now you're just a quarterback and expected to play at a high level.
Final 3 questions. And I do want to talk about Patrick Mahomes for a second. Not sure when you started working with or tutoring Patrick Mahomes. Maybe it was at Texas Tech, maybe once he got in the NFL. But when he was at Tech, Tech was fine, 500 team, a little below, sometimes game over. Like, what's the difference in Mahomes at Tech and Mahomes with Kansas City? Is it Andy Reid? Is it like, where did he hit his maturation? Like, what's the difference now?
Bobby, that is such a good question. Nobody has ever asked me that question. Here's my answer. I don't think a whole lot. And I'm one of the few guys that watched him play in college. Their defense, they couldn't stop anybody. He had to score 55 points a game. I went to one of his games. My brother, it was a season opener. He was playing for the Cardinals, and they were hosting the Patriots on Sunday Night Football, week 1. And it was one of the games when Brady was suspended for the first 4 games of the season. And Pat was playing at ASU on Saturday. I was like, oh, perfect. I'll come in early. I'll go watch Pat. I've been friends with Kingsbury, his coach at the time, who's OC in Washington now. I've been friends with him forever. I'm like, oh, dude, it'll be great. So I go there, I bring my son, I'm on the sidelines, I'm watching warmups, watch the game. And the running back for Arizona State, Keelan Ballage, had 7 touchdowns in that game. It's the only thing I remember about it. And I think Pat scored like 49 points and lost. That was his whole career. When you know that your defense is, and I played this way in college too. We had to score a lot of points to win. And what happens is a couple things. When you are in a situation, and I'll say in high school, that's fine too, where you got to score, I'll make up a number, 45 points to win today. Okay. Like, we're not going to win 17-10. Okay. Because they're going to score 35. What happens is you have to be uber aggressive. You also can't turn it over. If you turn it over, you have to assume they're going to score. So a pick is like -7, right? If you're playing math in your head. And so you have to be you have to be aggressive, but you have to be somewhat conservative on taking chances. So you got to go after it, but you can't just throw it up, right? You can't take sacks. You can't get holding penalties. So how you scramble. So what happens is Pat played in like 30, 40 games like that. And so this run and shoot, go, score. And I would say at the time, Texas Tech was as innovative on offense as anybody in college in the passing game. And I would say now Andy Reid is as innovative as anybody in the passing game in the NFL. So that part didn't change. I'm not comparing those 2 coaches, but like, that part didn't change. I don't think his work ethic changed. I think he's always been a hard worker. And confidence-wise, for him to sit that first year and then his first year playing, he throws like 50 touchdowns. Like, we're celebrating guys throwing 35 right now. Do like 50 his first year. So all that needed to happen was the confidence to translate it from the Big 12, which is irrelevant football at the time, to the AFC West, which is relevant football at the time. That was the thing that needed to happen. And I think there's a lot of pieces. I think the normalcy of his life, of same, he's married, his wife has been the same girlfriend. He's got the same circle of people. He's got the same trainer, Bobby Stroop, who does as good a job of anybody getting their athlete. I'm sure he's with Bobby right now working on this ankle as we record this. So I think he's kept his nucleus, his core the same. His confidence is obviously, thinks he's one of the best athletes on the planet. But I think that's the part that evolved. I don't think anything changed. I don't think he got way better. And again, we're talking about a guy who went 10th overall, that if we redrafted, 1,000% of people would say he was the number 1 pick. So like, this was not a 6th rounder that somebody found.
It feels a bit parallel to what Burrow's going through now. What you're talking about Mahomes in college, where -7 is an interception, where Burrow's got to score every freaking drive or they're going to lose the game.
Yeah. Well, he's scoring every single drive and they are losing the game.
Yeah, even then. I know.
Crazy.
Crazy. Eddie?
Yeah, Jordan. I was going to ask you, Jordan, real quick about backups. And what's the mindset when a backup is called in to take over? And like they always say, like, oh, they're always ready. Like you got to stay ready. But realistically, is it like I'm just going to hand off the ball 4 times and just see what happens, or I'm going to be a hero here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's a couple of ways that a backup enters the game. Okay, let's say like in the middle of the game you go in. Okay. So one is you're up big. So you are going to do what you just said. You're going to go and you're going to hand the ball off and take some knees. In fact, it's funny. Last year, Sam Darnold was the backup in the Niners, and Kyle Allen, who's with the Steelers now, was the backup to Josh Allen in Buffalo. And Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, and Kyle Allen all did draft prep together, and they all live down the street down here, really close to me, and they're best friends. And there was we had a whiteboard in our office, and because Kyle Allen kept going in at the end of Bills games when they were up, and Sam Darnold kept going in at the end of Niner games, and they kept taking knees. We had this like toggle over who was going to have more negative rushing yards at the end of the year. It was hilarious. It was like, I think it ended up like 14-12. But it was like the text chain was pretty funny. But so you enter into a game because you're down big or you're up big, right? Those are natural. But you also enter in because the starter got hurt. Now there's 2 ways of getting hurt. There's temporarily hurt. Okay. Like he's going to go to the blue tent, or they're going to change. They're going to tape it up. Right. But you're only in for like a series or a play, right? Like Sam Darnold got hurt this year. Nick Mullins went in, threw a fade down the sideline, and then Sam Darnold jogged back in. Right. So you temporarily go in. The hardest way for a backup to go in is when the starting quarterback, right now that is a season-ending injury, and I am now the starting quarterback of this team. There's nobody behind me. There's nowhere to turn to, and it's my turn now. And Jake Browning is a client of mine. And Jake Browning is the backup to Joe Burrow. And last year, he competed with Trevor Siemian for the backup job. He had been on practice squad for 3 years, hadn't played a snap in a game. And Joe Burrow hurt his wrist at Baltimore. And the first play they ran with Jake Browning was a fake toss to the right, roll left. He rolls left, backward, basically backside, flips his hips, and whips an over route to Trent Irwin coming across the field and freaking dying. And I was like, he's going to be just fine. And for the next 5 games, I think statistically speaking, Jake Browning's first 5 starts are the best in NFL history. And so what's really impressive to me is when a backup comes in, because it's not just Joe's hurt. One, oh my gosh, dude, that's one of my best buddies. He's hurt. The other thing is like, okay, what's the series? Okay, what are we calling next play? You know what I mean? Like there's the right now, and then there's this emotional state that you're stepping into going like, oh, I'm the quarterback moving forward. And there's some practice squad guy behind me, but like I'm the quarterback. And that's, I think, when a guy does that and does it well, like Jake Browning, I immediately go, I don't care how big you are. I don't care how fast you are. I don't care how strong you are. You can start in this league, because that's harder than having an entire offseason of preparation with those guys to then going in and playing.
Before you came on, we were talking about thread performance. We were just talking about some of the stuff, some of the products there, but I was debating if I'm playing flag football in like a rec league, if it would help me.
Yeah. Do you have any kids, Bobby?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But they all do. They all have boys that play, so you can talk to them about that. But I'm talking about myself. I'm being selfish, like, you're just gonna work for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that's in there is great for us. But it's pretty crazy. I'm a bit of an entrepreneur. I can see, Bobby, is your ring, is it metal or is it rubber?
Well, this one's rubber because I do play a lot of ball. I know ball and I play ball, so I got to keep it rubber.
So my buddies and I created the silicone wedding ring category. We launched a company called Qalo, Qalo. I was playing still at the time. Me and my high school wide receiver, Taylor Holiday, and our 2 partners started it. And it ended up going nuts. It's kind of why I retired. I retired because nobody wanted me, but I had a chance to go play somewhere, but I had to decide between vesting my equity or not. And we ended up, by the time we sold that company, we sold just under $200 million worth of rings. And so I started that. And then we spun that into a digital marketing agency. And this is like 2009, 2010, right at the beginning of e-commerce, when people started advertising on Facebook. So there was a point when I thought that we had actually spent more money than anybody on Facebook. And so we launched an agency and grew to 130 employees. And that's what I did every day. I would coach quarterbacks on the side. In fact, when I did Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Kyle Allen's draft prep, I would leave the field at 10:30 and go to work. And in that process, I had a lot of nutrition companies as clients. I ran business development, so I'd always deal with the founder, but I wasn't in the ad account. And so I saw some clowns build some big companies, and I saw some great products just not be marketed the right way. And I had a lot of experience from a marketing perspective and from an entrepreneur's eyes to the founder's eyes of nutrition companies. But it was interesting. That was it for me. I was a pro athlete, so I know what my body needs and doesn't need. But now working with so many quarterbacks, and for the last 5 years, I sold the agency back to my partners 5 years ago, and I've been doing this full time. I get a lot of the same questions. I'm a consultant, so consultants get a lot of the same questions. My elbow hurts, the coach is a jerk, the same kind of how should we go about recruiting? Should we transfer or not? How do I pick an agent? But one of the questions I got is, what should I feed my kid? And I just didn't like my answers. I didn't feel like I knew what to tell them. I've got two close friends. You may know them, Bobby. They live in Nashville. Do you know Dr. Josh Allen, who owns Ancient Nutrition?
I think I may have done some work with the doc when I injured myself at one point and had to ask him for a little consultation.
So he's, I would say that him and Jordan Rubin they own Ancient Nutrition, and before that, Jordan Rubin sold Garden of Life for like $1.2 billion. I would say that they're like the thought leaders in the space when it comes to holistic eating. I
don't know the billion guy. I don't know any billionaires, so I don't know that one. I don't know. Yeah, no.
Yeah, and Ancient Nutrition is that big too now. But I just went to them as friends and be like, hey, what should I tell people? And I was blown away with how little I knew about puberty in specific. I go, these are young kids. So what should kids going through puberty take? And if they would have quizzed me in that first conversation, I would have got an F. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. People pay me a lot of money to help advise them. And I can't even advise them on something that you could argue is more relevant than anything I'm going to tell them. And I told my now partner, Clark, who lives out in the Grove by you. And I said, hey, it's super interesting. I've been learning a lot about this. And he called me the next day. He goes, I didn't sleep last night. I stayed up all night. There's not a single company making products for that kid, for that demographic. And so we spent a lot of time researching. We hired great formulators to come in and build products very specifically designed for athletes with developing bodies. And we are off to a very hot start. We launched 3 months ago, been very well received. And so we got 3 products. One of them is a powder. It's a daily pack. You can see in my video, they're right here. And so this is daily fuel. Mix it with water. It's even better with almond milk. Throw in a smoothie. But you have collagen, very specific types of collagen, 1, 5, and 10 from fermented eggshell membrane. But for kids, ligament and tendon strength and fascia repair is huge when you're going through puberty. Bobby, for you and I, same thing.
Yeah, I need
right?
that.
Go play basketball,
sure
get sore, same thing. Okay, not all collagen's the same. But then there's also grass-fed whey protein. We have probiotics in here. We have a mushroom blend of ashwagandha and lion's mane and a few others. All your daily greens and all your daily vitamins. So if, as a mom, you put this in your kid's backpack and they mix it with water and they drink it, you just checked every box for the day. You can feel better. And then the other 2 products we have are capsules. One is for energy, but it's not B12 or caffeine. It's really about muscle oxygenation and a mushroom blend that helps with focus, because kids don't need a spike in energy at 2:00 in the afternoon like you and I do. What they need is sustained focus and energy and blood oxygenation so that they recover quicker, because they got to sit in class, go to recess, sit in class, get out, go to practice, come home to eat dinner, do their homework, finish their project, and go to bed. And then they got to repeat it. And so we have a product for that. And then the last one is for strength gain. It's not even just weight gain, but strength gain. And it's actually completely botanical. And we have these crazy results. We partner with this company, Rip Factor, and we see crazy results. Their studies are I think it's 2.4x strength gains with your lower body and 2.6 with your upper body. It's crazy results. And we are getting those emails back now. We are hearing moms say, oh my goodness. So we came out with 3 products. We've got more. It's for boys and girls. Bobby, you and I take it every day. It's great. It's great stuff. It's not, it's not kids gummies. But I think, our sale, it's been an incredible start for our launch, but some of these emails we're getting from parents of I can notice a difference in my kid and their focus is different and all that. And we've got a lot more products coming out in the hopper, very specifically when we get into girls. Girls are a lot more likely to tear a ligament when they're on their cycle. And so we've got some products coming out and hydration. And so we think this is a worthy market. We raise money very quickly from some awesome people who are very strategic. And it's been a great start for Thread Performance. And I think it's a good time in our country to have a company that makes healthy things for kids too, because I think we're going to see a lot more people waking up to what they have been giving their kids or what their parents gave them when they were little.
And we'll put all the information in the notes, but threadperformance.com to find all the products. We were talking about it earlier as well. And then also the Quarterback Room podcast. And I encourage people to check that out. It's quarterbacks talking quarterback. It's an awesome show. Love, taking in your content just in general, Jordan, and really appreciate the time today, man. So thank you for spending a few minutes with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
All right, Jordan. Thanks, man.